Hello everyone, I'm Nima Hakimi, CEO and co-founder of Convoso. And a little bit of history about us. We've been around since 2006. Started a business on an open source dialer by the name of Redial, which some of you guys might be very familiar with. And over the course of several years, we realized that the software could do a lot of great things, but it was really broken in many ways. The reporting wasn't working, contact rate wasn't well, the answering machine detection wasn't really good. So we started listening to our customers and really understanding what was working, what wasn't working, and we rebuilt everything from the ground up. And since then, having had those conversations, we've really figured out what works really well for an outbound call center to be successful. And there were a lot of different tips that we can share with you guys. So we're gonna, nail it down to about 10 best practices. Lisa, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. Good morning, I'm Lisa Leight. I'm VP of Marketing at Convoso. I'm also a recovering CPA. I started my career at Ernst & Young and then McKinsey, but that foundation of data-driven analysis really has guided my career in terms of metrics-driven marketing in my various spots, and we'll be talking about some of those items today. All right, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be giving you the top 10 best practices for outbound dialing. When we first started planning this discussion, we had dozens of items that we wanted to include, but we narrowed it down to what we consider the top 10 most relevant, and we'll be sharing those with you today in kind of a tag team fashion. All right, Nima's going to kick us off.
Great, thank you. Okay, so first off, really understanding your CPA, your cost per acquisition at a very deep level. What does that mean, right? It's understanding the cost of your leads. It's understanding how much time do your agents spend trying to convert those leads, because there are leads that might be higher intent, lower intent, but your agents could be spending a lot more time trying to convert those leads. So really understanding the amount of time it takes for them to be on the phone to convert those leads is very important. And then the cost, of course, of the dialer. So just looking at those three key pieces and being able to measure that at a lead source level. It's very important for you to be able to do that. And being able to do that in real time, right? So what happens is in an outbound call center, if you don't measure this on a regular basis, you could be having hours or periods of time where your sales are not coming in, and now you've lost tens of thousands of dollars. So you have to have the ability to look at it in real time, measured on an hourly basis by agent as well. So you can see which agents are performing well and which ones aren't, to be able to make decisions in real time to lower your CPA. Lisa, why don't you take us to the next one?
All right. Tip number 2 has to do with call flagging and call blocking. We survey hundreds of call centers, and this is always at the top of the list of the most perplexing frustrations for their outbound dialing. It's a problem, and it's getting worse. Carriers are taking things into their own hands, trying to address the issue of the illegal robocallers and the spoofers, but unfortunately, that net, trying to catch those illegal ones, is also catching folks like you, the good guys, the folks who are compliant-minded and dealing with consent, express written consent. So it's really imperative with this situation. Like I said, it's only going to get worse with the issue of stir shaken once that's fully implemented. But it's imperative to have visibility and insight to which of your numbers are getting flagged, which are getting blocked, which are showing up on the FTC complaints database, and now there's all these third-party applications like Nomo Robo and the like. You need to know which of your numbers are getting caught up in those. And once you get that insight, you can then make the smart decisions, such as DID management, understand more when DIDs need to be replaced, but it is eye-opening. And in some ways, it's like you're walking out there with a kick me sign on your butt and you have no idea. You're doing all this outbound dialing, not knowing which of your numbers are getting blocked. So it can really skyrocket contact rates and conversions once you get a solution. We have clear caller ID. There's other solutions that are possible, but we think ours is the best in really opening your eyes to what's happening out there with the carriers blocking calls. All right, tip number 3.
Great. Before we go to tip number 3, really what matters is there are a lot of solutions out there that can tell you if your caller IDs are being flagged or blocked, but you need to have the ability to have it integrated with your dialers so you can make those decisions in real time to figure out which ones are getting blocked or flagged so you can replace them. It's not the only way to solve this problem, but it is one that's very important for you to be able to do. So taking what we just talked about, calls getting flagged and blocked, what do we need to do to reduce that from happening, right? When we talk about dialing smarter and not harder, it means not calling the lead 30 times, 40 times, 50 times, 60 times. It means incorporating other channels such as texting, emailing. You know, if you get a real-time lead coming in, maybe you want to send a text message first and then follow it up by a call, or vice versa. Call it first, and if there's no response, send a text message. And you need to have the ability to do that in an omni-channel manner. What that means is, if there's a successful contact made from one of these channels, you don't want to keep texting the person or calling them. So you want to have the ability to have a closed loop on that outreach strategy to where it will decide when to stop texting or calling based on the success of the lead. And then you also want to break up the patterns of your redial or recycle strategy when there's no response. Don't just keep calling every 30 minutes, every 10 minutes, every hour. You know, you want to, obviously, when it's a real-time lead, call them a few times the first day, but then break it up for the next day. On the second day, maybe try day 7, day 30, and then recycle it that way. Breaking up these patterns will reduce the likelihood that your calls will get flagged or blocked. And then last but not least, personalization on the lead, including information on the text message, such as the name, anything that they filled out on the form, you know, what the offer was about, including that information will help increase your contact rate. All right, tip number 4.
All right. Also related to that last tip, it's all about improving your caller ID reputation. Tip number 4 relates to that as well. It's about branding your identity, and there's various solutions out there for doing that. Verified Calls by Google is a service where you can present your company name, your company logo, and your reason for calling. So you could include a message following up on your requests, or if you're a solar company, lowering your electricity bill, or whatever is the right message for you, and you can then test different messages and see what's going to provide the best response. Similarly, on text messages, there's a service called Campaign Registry, and this is branding your identity with the carriers. And here you can register your campaigns with Campaign Registry, with the carriers via Campaign Registry, and that's going to really increase your deliverability. So you're making sure that your text messages have the highest likelihood of getting seen.
Okay, so next we have managing your call volume using the DIDs. So what we're talking about here is, at the end of the day, there's not one single solution to lower the flagging, blocking of your calls, right? It's going to happen until there's a bigger solution at hand. You have to manage your DIDs or caller IDs by understanding your call volume and the geographies where you're calling, knowing how many you should be using per caller ID per day. So a system like ours at Convoso, it will take a look at your call volume and make recommendations on the quantity of caller IDs you should be using in the geographies, and you want to monitor that on a regular basis so that you maintain a level of, a ratio, I should say, of caller IDs versus total calls made per day. We recommend, somewhere around 50 calls per day. Unfortunately, the bad actors have ruined it for everybody else to where you have to make the call look like it's not coming from a, automated system that's making a lot of calls. It doesn't make the problem go away, but it will significantly reduce the likelihood that your caller IDs are going to get flagged or blocked. And then, of course, having the ability to replace them, right? It's not just being able to set the caller IDs on your campaigns, but it's being able to do it in a timely manner, because every day or hour that goes by that your caller IDs are flagged or blocked are calls that are not going through. So you're losing out on a lot of money. You need to have the ability to quickly replace and rotate them, again, based on the overall call volume and where you're calling. Lisa?
All right. Stir Shaken. I have to tell you, we love Stir Shaken for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it supports the compliant-minded businesses. It's going to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, do something to address the illegal robocallers. That's one reason why we love it. And number two, as a marketer, to have the stir-shaken, imagery, it's so hard. There's only so many, icons and logos of people on phones that you can do. But we're excited about this. We're so excited about stir-shaken that for those of you going to LeadsCon, I invite you to our booth. We're going to have a 20 by 20 booth. We're going to have martinis and Austin Powers. So please come join us at LeadsCon. All right, so readiness for stir-shaken. Stir-shaken is in its infancy. It's in the process of being rolled out, and we're still kind of waiting to see, when it's going to start having impact, but it is going to have a major impact on deliverability of calls. And that's why it's imperative that you are working with a provider that can provide A-level attestation in terms of signing your calls. There's going to be 3 levels, A, B, and C. We definitely don't think C will be getting through. The jury's out on what's going to happen to B-rated calls, but if you really want to maximize the opportunity for your calls to get through, you're going to need A-level attestation.
All right, tip number 7, personalizing your pitch. This one is very important in many different ways, but first and foremost is if you're generating leads or buying leads from a lot of different places, it could be 10, 20 different places. Sometimes you don't even know what the offer was about, and the agent that has that conversation just has a general conversation. It might work, it might not work, but the more information that you can provide to the agent using dynamic scripting that will provide information, whether it was the website that they filled out the form and asked for more information, or it was a specific offer, including that information into the script so that the agent can talk about it when they start having that conversation, will have a higher likelihood that the person will stay on the call versus hanging up because they're getting too many calls, right? That's one very important aspect of it. Second is compliance. Different states have different requirements in terms of the disclosure language and what you have to say at the beginning of the call, whether it's the name of the company, your name, the address, different pieces of information. You want to make sure that you include that and have the ability to do it dynamically depending on what state the person is in, so that you stay compliant, right? Because we all know at the end of the day, compliance is everything in this space. If you want to not only survive but thrive, you have to be compliant in every single manner possible. And then at the last but not least, it's really reducing training costs in terms of new agents being onboarded. We know that at the end of the day, after a while, agents get the hang of the conversation in terms of how to have it. But at the very beginning, it's a high turnover rate. People come and go, right? So you want to have the ability to make it easy for them to know what to say in terms of the objections and the rebuttals, and having the script drive that conversation in terms of them being able to easily click on what needs to be said based on what the person is saying. So that would really help personalize things and just keep the conversation going.
All right. Tip number 8, maximize your agent time talking to humans, not voicemails. If you're a 100-seat call center, what if I told you that you could be spending up to $2 million per year in payroll to have your agents listen to and disposition voicemails, answering machines? That's really the problem here, is that it's estimated that a majority of calls are going to answering machine messages. One of our customers previously estimated that 70% of his agent's time, they're an 80-seat call center, were spent on answering machine messages. So you're doing the math. If you're a 100-seat call center spending $15 an hour, and 70% of their time is on answering machine messages, that's $8,400 per day that you're spending. You could have just paid your agents to work for a couple hours and then just said, okay, go to the beach. That's what it is, and that can total up to a total of $2 million per year. So really maximizing your answering machine detection can have significant benefits, not just for the bottom line, but if you increase the likelihood, increase the conversations that your agents are having, they're going to be much more on their game. They're going to be practicing and improving their pitch. With poor answering machine detection, what happens is, they kind of get used to, okay, another answering machine, and then when they get a live person, they're kind of caught off base, and they're not at the top of the game to deliver the best and most compelling pitch. So it's really going to have a huge increase on agent morale and success in that. So make sure that you are focused on successful answering machine detection. Also, a solution that allows you to customize it, because depending on your leads, if you're dealing with high intent, more expensive leads, you will want to allow a few false positives to get through, but you can adjust that. So really focus on answering machine detection. We did a side-by-side test with Five9, and one new customer saw 5 times as many conversations and 5 times as many sales with superior answering machine detection.
Yeah, so before we go to that, really one of the challenges that you're going to be having with answering machines is because of the call flagging and blocking. So if you're starting to see a lot of answering machines being detected or going through agents, chances are that your caller IDs, your DIDs are being flagged or blocked. So you want to pay attention to that and talk to your provider to help you fix it. Tip number 9, prioritizing the leads to beat the competition. So what we're talking about here is that it becomes challenging when you are either generating or buying a lot of leads. We're talking about thousands and thousands per day, tens of thousands per day. You have those leads, you have your existing database, it gets bigger. How do you convert those leads? How do you make sure you give priority to the real-time leads? You obviously want to get as much out of your leads as possible. And what happens is at some point, what a lot of call centers don't realize is that you need to have the ability to keep the momentum going on your dialer, to continuously dial the leads and not have this period of time where it dips. So you want to pay attention to your call center. Is it consistently dialing at a very fast pace and fast speed? And is it taking the real-time leads and calling them first before the leads that have been there, your more aged leads? So you want to have different strategies in terms of calling your real-time leads first, but getting to your aged leads in a timely manner as well, and just looking at the pace again of your dialer. Are the number of calls, simultaneous calls, going down? Are they dipping? Are they staying at an optimal level? If it's dipping, then you're talking about moments in time where your dialer is not performing at the level it needs to process the calls and leads and get them connected in a timely manner.
All right. And last but not least, you need to make sure that you have solutions, technology, teams and advisors to make sure that you are quickly adapting to the ever-changing world of regulations. And that's something we've seen recently. First of all, just kind of on a micro level, the Hurricane Ida and the telemarketing issues, telemarketing restrictions on the full state of Indiana or certain counties in New York recently, making sure that you can stop calls to those areas on a dime. Also, something that's a little more complex, we've talked about the Florida mini TCPA law, where they've come up with restrictions that are specifically for calls placed to Florida residents. There's certain restrictions, like you can only call 3 times during a 24-hour period. So, and that there's litigators sitting out there trying to catch you in violation of this. So making sure that you can assign your Florida names and numbers to one list and treat that list differently. And, so that's just Florida. We expect that other states, like I heard rumors that Texas may be coming out with their own one. So all of these different states that are going to take matters into their own hands, and it's going to be just a myriad of regulations that you're going to have to make sure that you walk through. So making sure that you're working with technology and solutions in your tech stack that can constantly evolve, not a solution that adheres to yesteryear's regulations, because it's always changing. All right, so that's our top 10 tips. If any of you would like a copy of our presentation, just see me afterwards and give me your business card. Also, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to entertain your questions at this time. If not, we thank you for listening.